Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 3, I suppose we call this, of If It Moves Critique It. The usual crew are here. Ross, that's me. Alex, the one with the testosterone influence voice. And Charlotte, the one with the alcohol/estrogen influence voice.
Mostly just alcohol.
Mostly. She is the same percentage as a bottle of vodka. And about the same size as one. She's a little pint-sized alcoholic over there. Bless her.
Plus they don't freeze in regular freezers, it takes more.
It is true. This week, banging through our regular slots, as usual, before later moving on to our main topic, which this week is a dissection of the differences between what each one of us looks for in a video game versus a movie.
And also a dissection of frogs, because we like to know how they work, because they're confusing.
Yeah, so before we get into a ghetto battle between the science departments, let's shuffle on to what we've been doing this week. So, Alex, wax lyrical about your life.
Well, this is going to be somewhat of a follow-on from the previous episode because...
Is it about the road?
No, it's not about the road. But it
I was
is
looking forward to part 2 about the road.
Look, I'm sorry. I had only just finished the notes and I hadn't practiced how to not go on forever about them. But,
it's fine, the listeners don't know what we're talking about because we cut it.
Oh, yeah, okay. I would like to talk about Batman.
Again?
Yes, I would like to talk about Batman again. We didn't cover the game.
Is anyone else having deja vu?
It was Groundhog Day 4 days ago.
We're still stuck in it. It's just a mood.
Look, we didn't talk about the game and we didn't talk about the Dark Knight Returns. Those are both very important Batman things. So.
All right, okay. Considering as you're 2 feet inside Bruce Wayne at the moment, we'll let you.
So I still had to finish Arkham Asylum and Dark Knight Returns. So I would like to put out a blanket spoiler for both of those.
Does it turn out that Batman is Bruce Wayne?
How did you know that?
I know, it's just crazy. I just saw it coming.
I mean, if he had a small pair of circular glasses that he could put on and take off, then no one would have been able to spot him.
Yeah. That man was a master of disguise.
Exactly.
I think we can all agree that Batman Arkham Asylum is a brilliant game. Can we not?
It's a good game, yeah.
It's amazing because you are the goddamn Batman. You feel like Batman. And that's why you play a game of Batman instead of watching The Dark Knight, because you want to be him.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the game versus the film there. So that seems to lend itself quite nicely to our main topic. So good thread connection there.
Okay.
You know, every time that we do a kind of good segue, we should probably stop pointing out that it's a good segue.
I once said it was bad podcast etiquette to point out your own segue, but I don't think it's bad etiquette. I think you can get a good joke in and then make it blindingly obvious to everyone and ruin it and make it better overall.
I think segues are like people in hunting season. They have to wear orange. They have to be obvious, otherwise you're all going to miss them and someone will die.
Anyway, so you feel like Batman because the game gets all the elements of being Batman down, and they do it all really well. You're at the peak of physical prowess. You can take on 50 guys at the same time and you won't get touched. The combat system is really fluid and enjoyable to play. I even went on the infinite brawl mode several times just to beat people up. It's really fun. Number 2, you are the knight. Okay, in the stealth sections, you move around hunting your enemies and taking them out without being seen at all. But more than that, you can scare the bejesus out of them. If you've taken out all the guy's friends and it's just him in a room and you're like throwing batarangs to hit just to the side of his head deliberately for him to look over there, and then you'll jump out right behind him and grab him. You won't even know what hits him, and it's incredible because to him it's like this demon is hunting him. It doesn't matter that he's got a gun or he's a big muscly guy. He's fighting the goddamn Batman and he can't do anything. Of course, in a gameplay element, this really just comes down to the heart rate monitor says that he's terrified, and if you jump out in front of him, you get a brief moment where he won't shoot you, where he's terrified, and you can punch him without being shot once. But that's what it felt like to me, that I was a demon and I was hunting him and he couldn't do anything. The supervillains make up a part of Batman, and all of them are done really well. They are all portrayed exactly how I always felt it would be to fight them, the kind of traps and things that they would put against Batman, and it's really well done. The Scarecrow sections in particular were the best of all the villains, I think, because even though you're playing the game, you're not an anonymous protagonist. You're Bruce Wayne. You have an identity already, and the Scarecrow uses the fear gas to pick out what is most precious and terrifying for Batman, for Bruce Wayne, and it still worked. I was scared shitless when I thought Jim Gordon was dead, and I felt a pang of guilt when Thomas Wayne told me that I should have saved him like a real man. Brilliant. Scarecrow sections were probably one of my favourite in the game, and most importantly, Poison Ivy is still super hot.
Still, have you seen Uma Thurman?
Well, I quite like Uma Thurman. She may have massive hands, but she's still pretty.
No, that sounds awesome. Dark Knight Returns?
Dark Knight Returns is a Frank Miller graphic novel about Batman, about the final days of Batman. He is aged 55, I think, in this scenario, and when it starts, Batman has retired for about 10 years, and through this sort of inner battle with himself in trying to fight off the urge to become the Batman again, he ends up putting on his cape and cowl, returning to the streets of Gotham. There's a sense of finality with the book because Joker is a big one. I always imagined Batman and the Joker to be this sort of eternal battle, and it really, really worked for me what Frank Miller did, because the way they both act, even though it was small instead of this big sort of grandiose battle, they both act exactly how you imagine their characters to act. How crazy and cruel the Joker is, and how brutal the Batman is with this insane warped sense of morality. It was really intelligent, and I don't think anyone other than Frank Miller probably pulled something like that out of his ass. And Superman's in it too, and you get this really, really great contrast between Superman and Batman. I wanted to see an epic battle, so yeah.
He is like, Bruce Wayne's BFF.
Yeah, and he was such a dick to him when he first saw him. That surprised me. Right, okay, that's my week in review then. Even more Batman, but I'm definitely done now.
Charlotte, your turn. Alphabetical is.
I'm gonna have to steal the same things that you've done. So hopefully you've done something else, Ross, because talk about Superman.
Okay, I was gonna talk about Superman for one sentence. You can talk about as much as you want, and then I'll say my one sentence on it.
I watched Superman Returns. I was wearing Superman pajamas at the time, so I feel like I was really getting in spirit of it. Unfortunately, the film was shocking.
She was on her Superman-shaped pedestal as well about it.
I was defending him from himself. That's what it feels like where you're watching a film and the portrayal of a character is so bad, you genuinely feel like shouting, "But that's not you! That's not you! Why are you doing that?" Superman is an absolute dick during it. Like, there's a bit where... Have you seen it, Alex?
Yes.
Right, you know the bit where there's like the rocket attached to the top of the plane?
Yeah,
and everyone everywhere is just going, yeah, but why have you got this full of reporters? Is this your trial run? Because this is going to end badly. We all know it's going to end badly. But basically, the rocket doesn't uncouple the plane properly. So Superman comes up, he does it with his laser vision, blah, 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 and then he goes off to throw the rocket in space. Phil Wellington. And then he kind of just stands there for a couple of minutes, contemplating it, hands on hips, like, I did a marvellous job. And we're like, look, Superman, there's a plane there, and it's on fire, and the woman that you love is in it. Should you... he's gonna look at the sky a bit more. All right, you do that. You do that. That's a good plan. And for saying it's a superhero film about Superman, do you know how little Superman's actually in it?
It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, something like that.
My God. It was all about Kevin Spacey and his series of wigs.
Well, to be fair, if I had a choice between Superman and his sort of quest for the American dream, I'd rather have Kevin Spacey.
And his quest for Tiberium. Make a continent out of it. Does he not understand displacement? He really doesn't. Fucking Archimedes figured this out a couple of thousand years ago. If you make a fucking huge continent in the ocean, you're going to make tidal waves and destroy everything else. And why the fuck was the map of the new continent just an amalgamation of different states of the US? If you're going to make something new, make it a perfect shape. Make it a cock shape, or a pair of tits, or a perfect circle. Don't make it bits of America. Sorry.
Back to Superman just being a dick in this. Literally, all he uses is his powers. He uses it to stalk Lois Lane.
True.
Essentially, like 90% of the time he's using his superpowers are to look through her walls, look through walls at the Daily Planet to see where she's going in the lift. Hey, Superman, guess what? It's upwards. You really need to watch her for an entire 40-second frame. She's still going upwards. Look, she's still going. Do you want to fly out the window and meet her at the top? Because she's just going up.
She was wearing a floor-length skirt in order to avoid any upskirt panty shots.
He's not even going to see anything. And then he flies her around for a bit, and then
the whole physics of that spawned a topic of debate as well.
Oh, I love those debates. The fact that if he flew too fast to take her around the world, her skin would probably fly off or something.
Yeah. There's a bit where Lois Lane and her baby daddy and her son.
James Masters.
I do James Marsden.
Thank you.
Different man. It's not Spike from Buffy. It would probably be a bit more awesome if it had been.
It's Cyclops.
Yeah. Okay, so Lois Lane and Cyclops and some kid in a boat, and the boat is sinking. So Superman comes, and instead of doing what he should have done, they're trapped in a room in the boat, and the door is
There's one door
straight
between them.
Yeah, one door between them. Instead of yanking the door open and pulling them all out with his super strength, he just lifts the whole fucking boat. It's a shit. It's a massive shit. And he's just like, I will show off my superpowers. And I'm like, they could be drowning in that one room, because I don't think it's airtight on account of it being filled with water. You can see that through the window.
See,
and then
that's always been quite a big thing. It's always been Superman's really powerful, but a bit of a retard. And the reason why Batman is better is because he actually is reasonably intelligent.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. Sometimes I think they just find it hard. Say that Superman essentially has this power it's stoppable by tiny green crystals, and that's it. I imagine that it must be hard for the writer to go, well, we've got to give him limits somehow. It's going to have to be stupidity in terms of physical strength. We can't have it. Like he eventually yanks the door open, pulls out Cyclops and Lois Lane and the kid. Okay, and then, instead of just going, well, I shall fly you back safely to Metropolis, which is about, a 10-minute journey for Superman, he's like, no, you can fly back in this seaplane.
But none of you can fly.
Cyclops can fly a seaplane, alright? He was part of the X, and he knows how to fly a seaplane. That's nothing.
He knows how to fly the X-Jet, and that thing's basically all computers.
I mean, they do nearly die again.
No, the X-Jet doesn't actually have any propulsion. It's flown by Jean Grey's telekinetic power.
Later on in the series, yes, but in the first two films, Jean Grey isn't flying it, it's got fucking engines.
I was joking, I didn't know she actually did fly.
She does do that at some stages, I'm pretty damn sure.
Only the bit with the massive tidal wave, and she's all like, I could not possibly fly it from inside the plane, and we're like, why?
For no reason.
I know, just so she can come back as Phoenix. That was unfortunate disbelief, not of not knowing the character. It was ridiculous.
Can I sum up Superman Returns in one sentence then?
Yeah.
Okay. It is worse than the vestigial twin on the arse of the aborted fetus of Spider-Man 3 and The Rise of the Silver Surfer.
No, I disagree. I think Spider-Man 3 and Rise of the Silver Surfer were both worse.
They both have redeeming features. The only redeeming feature about this film was watching Charlotte watch it. It was so entertaining.
Oh, I think it has some redeeming features. You do get to see some of Superman's superpowers. Like, he gets shot in the eye.
Seeing superpowers isn't great, though, because we know what they are.
No, I will admit, getting shot in the eye, that was quite a good scene. It made me cringe, which I assume is what it's supposed to do.
But surely he's wearing contact lenses at that point, because he wears glasses when he's Clark Kent, so he needs contact lenses.
No.
So that would have shattered his contact lens.
No, he doesn't need contact lenses. It's a disguise.
Oh, so he doesn't need contact lenses because the glasses aren't real glasses. Therefore, he is the original hipster.
Yeah, we can't argue with that one.
Well, I think Kevin Spacey makes that film worth watching. I love seeing him as Lex.
No, he can be such a good villain, because basically all Kevin Spacey can do is play villains or other villains. That's pretty much it. I mean, you can try and watch him a role where he's actually good, but it doesn't quite work. Like when I was watching, was it Moon, where he's the computer?
Yes.
Computer the entire time was on the side, the main character, there was no evil in it whatsoever, and do you know what I kept thinking? I was just like, evil, gonna be evil, gonna be evil. I think I said it about 10 minutes in, I was like, computer's gonna turn out to be evil in it. And it wasn't, but because it was Kevin Spacey's voice, I honestly couldn't get past that.
No, it's because of 2001 A Space Odyssey.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it, so how...
That I bet you've seen a scene where they've done a parody of how...
It's an inbuilt sort of trope now, really, that computers go evil.
Yeah.
But it's a little smiley face on a coffee machine.
And then a sad face, and then a confused face.
Every time someone makes me a cappuccino, I don't automatically assume it's going to end in fire and brimstone.
And that's why Skynet's going to get you first.
As long as I get a cappuccino. No.
This cappuccino will give me the energy I need to fight Skyrim.
Skynet, probably.
Skynet. Oh, sweet Jesus, that bloody game.
You can't fight it, Alex. Don't even try.
I don't even own it.
Anyway, so yeah, Kevin Spacey should be really good as being evil, and he's just not. I literally spent the entire time going, it's Lex Luthor. He should have all the money and the power. You'd think that there was some kind of cleverness in his plan. Genuinely, I can see, I'm sure it was explained and I just missed it, but I can see no kind of logic to the point where he goes, yeah, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make another landmass out of Krypton. And then what the fuck are you going to do with it? What was he actually going to do with it?
I don't know. I think we raged over that part of the storyline.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong, his plan was a bit retarded. His plan was real estate, and it was silly. But I still think he's a good actor.
We weren't ever debating his acting style, his acting quality, sorry. It was just this role was awful for him.
Yeah, it was so campy. What I kept saying throughout the film was that it was trying funny, but it was kind of like, it's not as... Iron Man is funny in a clever sort of way, in a more grown-up way. and a more kind of situation humour way rather than just one-liners. Spider-Man is funny in, not in a childish way, but in a kind of campy superhero, here's our cliche, we're doing it really well, this is what happened way. And Superman kind of went straight down the middle, aiming for both, missed both of them completely. It wasn't clever enough to be funny in an Iron Man way, and it was taking itself too seriously to Spider-Man. So you kind of just went...
Okay, that's a good point. I'll concede that.
Cool. What were your other things?
I watched Requiem for a Dream. Yeah, it's one of those films that everyone says you really should watch it.
Is it Aronofsky?
Yeah.
Sorry, what
Yeah,
film?
I
It didn't come through.
Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, essentially it's Jared Leto doing what Jared Leto does best, which is get gangrene in his arm from drugs. Some other stuff happened, but really that's all that stuck with me because it's disgusting. Neither of you have seen it,
No.
so I don't want to spoil it very much. It's one of those films that everyone said you really should watch it. It was quite strange. It's a film in 2000, but it seems like a film made in the late 80s, early 90s. It's very good stylistically in
Cool.
terms of capturing that kind of era. So that way it's good, and it's not bad. I found it very cliche.
I don't think that kind of era really needs to be captured, to be honest. I know I was only a baby then, but it was quite boring. It really was.
You still had your finger on the pulse of, all the comings and goings socially and fashion-wise, didn't you?
Oh, of course it did, yeah.
I'm so sure that the Brooklyn drug scene, the early 90s, was where you were hanging out at that time.
I just imagining him as a baby with the ponytail and beard he has now, but in a shiny polyester grey suit rolled up to his elbows, looking like Steven Seagal in one of his shit movies.
I look like Apex Twin from that music video where that thing comes out of the TV and screams at the old woman.
Oh, I don't like that video.
I thought it was a brilliant video, but it was horrible.
Shit, scary.
Yeah,
May I talk about my things?
indeed.
Right, do we want games or do we want film first? Put it to the floor?
I don't care.
Alex,
Which is to say, I don't mind.
Game first, film second.
Well, I basically tripped into Game recently and bought PS Move series of things, and I got myself 2 controllers, the Move kit, the demo disc, and Sports Champions. I brought it home and it was pretty awesome. Play with it a little bit. Really, really enjoying it. I think it's basically just like an improvement on the Wii's motion control, but with nice high-def graphics and the advancement that has happened since the Wii first came out. Is it Wii Motion Plus? Was that the update for it, Al?
Yeah, that was the one that's turned it into what the PlayStation Move controller had from the start.
Yeah, the PS Move is pretty awesome. I mean, I genuinely like it over the Kinect because you've actually got a physical thing in your hand. It does look like a sex toy, but whatever. And I've yet to play Aragorn's Quest and Killzone 3. Both I bought specifically because they were Move enabled. So I'm looking forward to roping one or both of you into playing some of those with me.
Never be me.
Yeah, we had an experience over the weekend where we tried to play iPet, and we had this little... It basically looked like a dog had fucked a monkey running around on my lounge floor, refusing to take any command from Charlotte whatsoever, while she just got more and more frustrated with the Professor Oak on crack-like instructor, because he was like, waggle your fingers to make it pounce, and Charlotte probably spent a good 10 minutes screaming at him. It was brilliant. It was genuinely brilliant, but it seemed broken, really broken. It didn't seem to work at all. Like, levels of PS2 iToy broken, and it was just...
Forgotten that existed.
Yeah.
God, it's insanely popular. Still don't know why.
I used to have it. One that just the game just made you flail your arms around until you've smashed everything of value within 3 feet of yourself. So you could clean windows. Yeah, no. And so I think like all the demos on the disc were pretty shit. There was one which is draw colours on the screen to make music because the camera only picked up 4 colours in the room. Grey, black, and white. We ended up making probably something that could have been remixed into a Skrillex hit or something like that, but it was awful, really. And then there was that amazing game, I cannot remember what it was called, but it was to do with shadows, and the Wiimote controls a shadow, and there are blocks on the level, and you have to use the Wiimote to move the light around in order to change the position of the light, so the shadows change, and then you can guide your character, a little bit like Lemmings, from a start position to an end position. And that was really, really ingenious use of the move control, I thought.
It's called Echochrome.
Thank you, Echochrome. And yeah, Charlotte played all the way through that demo, and it was great fun watching it. It looked really good as well. Very simple, artsy style, but it looked good. But yeah, there's all the built specifically for Move Tech games, and then there's the other sort of category, which is normal games which are trying to meld their way towards Move Tech, like Killzone 3, for example, which I'd be really interested to play because it's like a light gun shooter, I would imagine, because your move control controls the your aiming, which would be interesting. A little bit like, I imagine it worked like Metroid Other M did, Al, and any other 3D Metroid games on the Wii. I don't know how many there have been, but how was that?
It took me a little bit of getting used to at the start, but when I did manage to get used to it, I thought they were excellent, and I thought I preferred them to an analog stick because I felt like I had a greater element of control.
Because I was going to compare it to like Resident Evil 5 and things like that, Resident Evil 4 even that I played on your Wii before, but that's very much a case of you may move or shoot, so there's not really much tactics involved, whereas I can imagine with things like Killzone, it's going to be a case of you need to be doing both at once, so maybe a little...
Yeah, well, the Metroid Prime series is a really good way to judge that, because the first and second you had a normal controller with the analog stick, and then the third one you had the Wiimote, and you had to aim at that, and it was like definitely a slight shock to the system at the start, but it didn't take longer to get used to than normally picking up a controller for a game, and once you did, it was an improvement. So yeah, and I remember having a good time on Killzone 2, so I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yes, so you have to come over at some point and we'll do that. Moving on, the other game that I've been playing has been Star Trek Online, because it went free to play on the 2nd of February, and I am writing a review currently of this, so I also get into more depth about that, but I just wanted to talk about this. It's exceptional. It's the first MMO I've genuinely got balls deep in and really started to enjoy the MMO side of it, the grinds, the leveling up, things like that, and the PvP and PvE are both really well done, and it's a direct blend between ground combat and space combat. Ground combat being akin to KOTOR, the Knights of the Republic series, but without all the pausing, and space combat being pretty much exactly the same as the 2007 game, I think, Star Trek Legacy, based on various different Enterprise captains through the years, which is really good, and it's exceptional. And yeah, it's free to play, very smooth, does all its patching in game, so you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours downloading patches before you can even start. And unlike the last free to play MMO I played with DC Universe Online, it hasn't decided to just up sticks and die the minute everyone tries to join the servers, which is good. So I generally jones for it when I'm not playing it, which is something that hasn't ever happened with an MMO before.
Slippery slope, dude. MMOs.
If you find me playing RuneQuest, I give you full permission to just take me out. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. What I've been watching, I predict a shitstorm from this, really. It was Drive, the film that I have heard so much about being exceptional, being this sort of in the everyone's top 10 of 2011, this exceptional piece of filmmaking that you definitely have to see. And I thought it was appalling. There was very little redeeming in the way of redeeming features from it, apart from the soundtrack. The soundtrack is absolutely stunning. It's come close to my love for the Tron Legacy soundtrack, sorry. And as we all know, Tron Legacy is just an excuse for Olivia Wilde to be in tight leather and the Daft Punk to get a 2-hour music video. So go out, get the soundtrack, listen to it. It's brilliant. Do not watch a film, because it's basically Ryan Gosling and Kate Mulligan. They do a little bit of staring for a bit, and then something happens and they have to look somewhere else, and then they stare at each other a little bit. And there's no dialogue, because apparently it was sort of decided at some point down the line that you can say more by just looking at each other but then not saying anything. And whilst in certain situations that is true, you can't do it every scene and expect there to actually be a story arc. It doesn't work that way. So, as I said, Ryan Gosling, if people aren't aware who that is, he was that bloke what was in The Notebook, the one that all your female friends would have made you watch at some point. Charlotte, where's Kate Mulligan from?
Carey Mulligan is from Dawson's Creek, and an episode of Doctor Who. Played Sally Sparrow.
Other people knocking around in it. Ron Perlman is an asshole in a tracksuit, and the more that man ages, the more he looks like a gorilla. He just has too much face. There's face and there's extra face, sort of knocking around looking for work, really, and there's not really enough going around. Bryan Cranston's in it because he's in everything at the moment. It's almost like if you're making a project, you have to chuck Bryan Cranston in it. You were Breaking Bad, Malcolm in the Middle, and things like that. And also Cole Meany, because... well, it's got violence in it, therefore Cole Meany has to be in it. I quite like Cole Meany, but he was in it for about 30 seconds as well. But yeah, it was just sort of, people have been saying it's this amazing film of two halves, it's this sort of, it kicks off pace and completely changes halfway through, and all it did, really, was mimble along, not really doing much, and then suddenly violence, unnecessary violence, people without heads, gunshots going, through the backs of people's brains, everybody dying, people having wrists slashed, and Ryan Gosling's character having complete disregard for footwear longevity as he stamps another man's face into dust. Literally, like splatterings of bones and brains and everything. It was just, I'm not a fan of violence as a thing in a film, but I can understand when it's relevant and when it's necessary, but I can also see when it's just there for being violence, and I very much felt this film was just violent for the sake of it. There was genuinely no need for that level of violence. So yeah, quite a negative week, unfortunately, film-wise. We're looking at 3 of the trailers. So we'll start with Carnage. Well, it's a Roman Polanski film based around four parents. Kate Winslet, Jodie Foster, John C. Reilly, and Chris Waltz, and their two sons get in an altercation at school, and the film centers around sort of the meetings of the parents having to deal with each other, trying to sort out the issue, really, in a very enclosed environment, just in one flat for the entire length of the film. There's only actually 6 actors in the film.
I thought it looked really good. They've got some really good actors there, and for films that are quite intense, you know, they're very, very small cast in one sitting, which this film seems to take place almost entirely in this one flat. It looks like it's going to be very intelligent, so I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely.
It's basically just about the dynamic between these two sets of parents, and I reckon they've got a really good mix of actors and actresses to portray it really well. So,
yes, no, I definitely agree. The fact that it's such a simple premise, if you can establish the parameters being quite small, you can be very specific about an issue, you can hone the scope in on something, but you can make it so detailed and so sort of, you can explore that issue so much by limiting the characters that you have to develop and the scenarios you have to develop. It really, really gets a very satisfying level of detail.
Yeah, you know, I think people do that really rarely. Do you remember Red Dwarf?
Red Dwarf as in the TV show?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
This is huge ship that they're on. It's set in space, and they can deal with aliens or technology or whatever. And a lot of it is just Lister and Rimmer sitting in a room talking to each other. And it's some of the best scenes are just that, and it's amazing.
Another film this brings to mind being on that premise is Exam. Whilst being of a completely different genre, that was very much a one-room film as well. It was a one-room film. It was just 12 or 10 people in a room.
I didn't really like Exam that much.
Please don't spoil it for me, because I did see the last 20 minutes and I fell asleep, so I don't know what happened.
But yeah, no, Exam being the whole 10 people in a room sort of thing, narrowed the scope down. The premise was set up within the first quarter of an hour, and then it just enabled, from a very small starting point, a lot of sort of an explosion of interaction, dialogue, subterfuge, plots, this, that, and the other. It really was good. And just saying that sort of idea is rarely done very well, and I very much think Carnage is going to do that with Polanski at the wheel as well. I think it's going to be pretty good. I would give that a 9 out of 10 just from the trailer. I think it's going to be exceptionally good.
It looked a bit like Burn After Reading, and I quite want to see it.
Yeah, good analogy. Yeah. Maybe with less sex wings.
Different premise, but you know, same sort of feel to it, same sort of style. Good week for trailers. Every single one of the trailers this week, I really took my interest, and I think I'm probably going to want to see each one.
Let's jump onto Chronicle. So yeah, Chronicle is a found footage film following the exploits of, I think it's 3, maybe 4 young teenagers, late teens, early 20s maybe, in America, who suddenly come into superpowers for some unknown reason, and plots the absolute power corrupts absolutely sort of character arc on one of them, and sort of if given these powers, what would happen to you just to being an average Joe Bloggs in the street, trying to scale it back from all the camp sort of superhero movies like Spider-Man, Superman, and things like that, saying that, you know, there was these sort of well-rounded characters that have their little quirks and little traits. What would happen if it just happened to just a random guy in the street? Would they be able to do it and things like that? And I think it looks very good. It's directed by Mark Landis, which is quite funny because Mark Landis' the only other thing he's done of merit is a short, which is all on YouTube, 16-minute long film called The Death and Return of Superman, which features Simon Pegg and Elijah Wood. And it's basically just a dissection of when Action Comics in 1992 killed off Superman and then brought him back. Done with sort of live action interpretation, and it's absolutely stunning. I thought it was fantastic, but that's a separate issue. So, Chronicle.
I quite want to see it, but the more I watch the trailer, the more I feel like I'm not going to like any of the characters.
Yes, I can sympathise with that.
I do struggle when I've got no likeable characters to kind of, you know, there's going to be the one that goes off the rails, and we all have to go, oh no, he's terribly evil, we would never do that, we're much too British, we would just lift our cups of tea with our minds. But we need the people that we can side with. And the problem is these are all teenage boys, and part of me thinks, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to be like, no, you're all idiots.
Exactly why I hated Attack the Block.
Yeah, not because it's specifically boys or a male-led film, just because from the
feminism.
Just because from the trailer, it seems very much like they get really revved up, going, oh yeah, we're going to like destroy the stuff, and I'm going to destroy some more stuff. It's going to be really cool. And I just from the trailer, I'm really hoping that the film manages to develop characters in a way that's more than just he was good and now he's evil because he can bend spoons.
because Uri Geller should be ruling the world if that's true. I think found footage would be an interesting way of doing that. I don't really like found footage, but I think it might lend itself to this quite well. As you say, it sort of hinges on whether they develop the characters enough to make them relatable. I wonder whether found footage was the correct way to go for it. I always do, but I think it might work for this one. What about you, Alex?
I think I'm probably going to like Chronicle, but I agree with Charlotte in that none of the characters seem likable. They seem like a bunch of teenage assholes.
I feel vindicated in my point now, because the way I said it makes it just seem like I was like, no, they've all got penises. How on earth am I ever going to speak to any of them?
No, they all seem like idiots. I think because of that, I'm definitely putting this film under guilty pleasure because of the characters, because I don't really feel anything for them, because I dislike them, and so I'm not going to really have any investment in the film at all. I'm just going to watch them fall apart because of their stupidity and watch them blow stuff up, and it's going to be fun. I think it's probably going to be done quite well. I actually quite like found footage films. I have a kind of a soft spot for them, and judging from the guy and his Superman video, he seems intelligent enough to be able to do a film well.
Okay, should we move on to Hunger Games then? I came to watching this trailer and I thought, well, the only thing I've heard about this in any way, shape or form is one of the film critics whom I follow quite closely, whose work I follow quite closely, is Dave Chen of the Slash Film. Sort of retweeted someone's opinion that The Hunger Games is going to become the new Twilight series. It's going to be the new series of books that then become films, that then become an absolute, huge fan following. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I came to watch the trailer, and I genuinely cannot see that at all. I don't see the connection. So as far as I can tell, the Hunger Games seems to follow around. The trailer gave me the impression it was like a 1984-esque sort of oppressive society, and then the main character, played by Jennifer Lawrence, people might know from First Class. Yeah, so she's kind of just stood there, and then something happens to her sister, and then she takes her sister's place, and then apparently Miss World, the worst version of Miss World competition, happens with fire and burning trees and really odd Cruella de Vil dressed characters. And then Woody Harrelson, and then Stanley Tucci and Donald Sutherland turn up, and then it kind of ended. And I was left with a feeling of sort of what the fuck just happened to me. I don't really know what happened. All I saw was, as I said, those actors, some weird sort of pageant style stuff. And then it's only when I came to read the IMDb page that I kind of understood what was going on. If I just read it out now, the IMDb summary, this 4-line summary, is set in a future where the capital selects a boy and a girl from the 12 districts to fight to the death on live television. Katniss Everdeen, that's Jennifer Lawrence's character, volunteers to take her younger sister's place for the latest match. What we've got here, key elements being television, people fighting to the death. Well, my original connection to that was the Gerard Butler film, 2009, Gamer, which was hilariously entertainingly bad. I cannot see a redeeming feature about this film whatsoever. I have negative amounts of interest in it. I'm so uninterested in it. I want it to go away. Because I fear that it's going to be one of those hot trending topics. Unfortunately, yeah. I think I'm done. The only thing I will say is directed by Gary Ross, who's got a bit of a man crush on Tobey Maguire, it would seem, because he was the director of Pleasantville and Seabiscuit. That's some real high quality directing stock there. A film about Spider-Man on a horse.
Pleasantville was an excellent film.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that film.
Yes, indeed. That was a good film. So does anybody want to eviscerate what I just said, or jump in with their own thoughts on Hunger Games?
Looks like Battle Royale, but for smaller children.
God, Battle Royale was an amazing film.
It's not quite close enough to Battle Royale for me to think it's going to be as good as Battle Royale, but...
Essentially what we want is just Battle Royale again.
Another one.
You mean Battle Royale 2?
No, just the same film, but with slightly better picture quality.
Interestingly enough, it's almost like your prayers have been answered, because Battle Royale went on sale in America a month ago.
Oh, wow.
On Blu-ray, as in, it's the first time it's been on sale in the US.
Oh, wow. Why has it not been on sale?
Bugger knows.
Probably all the child abuse and stuff.
Probably.
It's not child abuse, it's character building.
Yeah.
The fat kid with the frying pan. I remember that one.
So, yeah, I didn't know... I still don't know anything about this series. I haven't read any of the books or been following the film's production at all. I literally have just seen the trailer. So it's a very good trailer because there's a lot in it and it captures my attention by showing me exactly the right amount of things that I want to see an answer to. It's the sort of work camp setting at the beginning was very well done, very, very sort of immersive in the costumes and the settings and everything. It looks very, very real and visceral, even though you don't actually see anyone being mistreated. It certainly seems incredibly oppressive. And then this poor girl gets ripped out of her meager existence, threatened constantly on this TV show for other people's entertainment, and there are explosions and people training to fight, and
then we stop watching X Factor and turn over to the actual trailer.
So yeah, it's I reckon it's going to be a very, very mediocre film. But
I'm viewing this trailer in the same way I viewed the Amanda Seyfried Red Riding Hood trailer, which was, that seems like a really good idea, something that I would genuinely enjoy, a retelling of an old tale done in a modern style-ish, as it were, sort of brought up to date a little bit, but then it was sort of shat all over by the Stephanie Meyer brigade. And I watched it and I was sort of like, "Aww, you did it shit. Why didn't you do it good?" The idea really sort of seemed good in the trailer, and then it was just really poorly executed. I think in this, I just don't like the idea. Nothing about the trailer grabs me in any way, shape or form, but I think what you were saying, where it's a good trailer, and that you think the film will be mediocre, maybe follows the same sort of thinking, that it just...
Yeah, it's just because I'm just very cynical about it. It's a very clever trailer in that it shows me nothing of substance, but it shows me enough to get my interest. And
so you say clever. I think that's what a trailer should be. However, these days trailers seem to be, look at all the stuff we spent all the money on, come and see the film so we don't get, foreclosed on, please.
No, because I want the trailer to show me what the film is genuinely trying to show me. If I see a trailer like that, I feel like I'm being deceived. I feel like I'm not seeing what the film is actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So yeah, I can't judge the film genuinely at all, and so I automatically assume that the film's not going to be very good because they have to resort to tactics like that to get my attention. Or maybe they just have a bad trailer director. I don't know.
So are we just about done with our so let's just do a rundown. Alex, are you going to see these 3 films? Are you going to see Carnage?
Okay, let's imagine theoretically that I have a disposable income before we answer those.
Yes. I think that applies to myself as well.
Carnage. Yes, I would see that.
Good. Hunger Games?
But probably not in the cinema. I would wait for it to be on DVD or something because
money.
No, because there's no spectacle, because it's just a situation. It's just verbal and sort of interpersonal. I don't need to see that on a big screen. Chronicle, yeah, I'd probably see that at the cinema because I want to see if this guy is actually a capable director.
Okay, yeah. Hunger Games?
I'll wait for somebody else to see it and then see it going on there.
Yeah, let someone else drink the poison wine first and see if it kills them with mediocrity.
Exactly. And let someone else be the canary.
That's the one. Charlotte, are you going to see Carnage?
Nope.
Chronicle?
Nope.
Hunger Games?
Nope.
Oh.
All for different reasons. As Alex said, I wouldn't go to cinema to see Carnage. I would wait for that on DVD. There's no spectacle in it. I wouldn't see Chronicle because if it's found footage, I can't watch it in the cinema.
But you would want to see these films on DVD at some point.
I would want to see Chronicle on DVD, assuming someone else had watched it and told me how likely it is to make me want to throw up. Not in terms of violence, in terms of I really struggle with shaky camera.
Maybe if I sit next to you and shake your head at the same frequency, would that?
I'll kill you.
Okay.
That one. I don't want to see Hunger Games.
Yeah, I think Hunger Games.
I don't even want to see the trailer for it. So.
No, to be honest, I know I made a song and dance about making sure everyone watched the trailers. There was nothing in that trailer you didn't get from Wikipedia. It was literally the same amount of information, but less Elizabeth Banks dressed as what's her name, Cruella de Vil.
Well, basically, we ask questions, and then people get questions wrong, and then I end up with all the points, and I win. But I've tried to keep them tied into the theme, which means nothing, because the last one was just a shot in the dark going, oh god, I've run out of questions.
Forgotten what we talked about anyway, so
it's a theme that we haven't yet talked about, so I'm kind of preempting it. First question. Which film opens with the owner of an evil multinational corporation throwing his son off a cliff? The theme is video games and films.
I feel like that's something I should know.
Yeah.
Same here.
Owner of an evil multinational corporation throwing his son off a cliff.
Yeah.
Don't look at me, I'm not helping you.
Do you know what it is, though?
I'm not sure.
If you're not sure, you must have an idea.
I'm not helping you.
All relationship privileges are here suspended.
Am I going to really, really kick myself for not getting this?
I don't know. Possibly? Do you want to
Can I have a clue?
Yeah. The guy throwing his son off a cliff was called Heihachi.
That's made it harder.
How has that made it harder? His son was Kazuya.
I don't know these words.
I literally spent my entire childhood playing this game.
Sounds pretty hardcore if you were playing it as a kid. Someone's committing infanticide, crying out loud.
Yeah, but it's okay, because this is in the film, so in the game you just got a little cutscene with it, and it wasn't as dramatic.
I don't know the answer.
Do we do answers now, or should I do answers at the end?
Do them at the end. I think it adds suspense.
Question 2. What film about evil video games features Milo Ventimiglia and Frankie Muniz and that dude from that one episode of Friends?
What?
I feel I should tell you he's looking a bit despondent at the moment.
It's okay, I'm doing the hard ones first.
Alex,
I'm so disappointed in myself.
there's at least 2 you'll definitely get.
Alright. Evil video games. Oh, is it, can you repeat the question, please?
What film about evil video games features Milo Ventimiglia, which is Peter Felly from Heroes, and Frankie Muniz, who's that guy from Malcolm in the Middle?
Yeah.
That's right. And that dude from that one episode of Friends, who I don't know the name of, but you'd probably know if you saw him.
What episode of Friends? What character was he in episode of Friends?
Oh, he was like a creepy roommate.
Oh, him.
Oh, him!
Yeah. See?
The Jewish
Him.
guy who was in Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
But that's not the question. The question is, what's the name of the film?
I don't like those 3 actors being in something together.
Can I have a clue? Or have you already given me... No, can I have a clue, please?
I don't really know what the clue be for this.
Play Hangman with it or something. Give us some letters.
It begins with an S.
An S.
Is he on a hoverboard on the DVD cover? No, he's not.
So it's not Agent Cody Manx then?
Of course it's not. It's a film about evil video games. They start playing a video game, and then...
I don't know what that film was about.
What, Agent Cody Banks?
Yeah.
About that.
No, neither do I, and I'm happy to keep it that way. Yeah, so they start playing a video game.
They start playing the video game, and then the video game turns out to be evil and full of spirits, and they have to kind of stop playing it in real life.
Like modern Jumanji.
Nightmare? Like spelled with a K?
No, but that really rings a bell for something, but it's not that.
Oh yeah, it begins with an S. Okay.
Nightmare spelled with an S.
I don't know either.
Okay. Third question. You're doing well so far. Name 2 playable characters from the original Resident Evil game.
Oh, Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield.
You got one?
Told you get that one.
Literally patted me on the head just then.
There have been 27 video games in a certain comic book, film, video game, Spamorama franchise. Name the franchise.
Oh, okay.
So, like, there were 15 in Pokemon, so that was Pokemon. This isn't Pokemon.
Okay.
27, Jesus, more than Pokemon.
I know. 27 video games, I think 4 films, 5 films, 6 films?
Some films.
There's a lot of films. I lost count.
Do you have a pre-prepared clue for this, or can I ask a question for my clue?
Ask a question, please.
Which came first, the video games or the films?
Technically, the comic books came first, but
Okay.
video games then, if it's between those 2.
Comic, then video games, then films.
Mm-hmm. There was also a TV series. It's multimedia.
That has made it infinitely harder.
I'm struggling to think of franchises that have gone above 20 games. Can't think of any.
I am going by Wikipedia here, so...
Okay. That might include things like on the Sega CD or something.
I think, 20 of the games were about the franchise as a whole, and the rest were about a specific character in them.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I think I know. I'm just saying that so when Alex gets it wrong, I can say I knew.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't take a guess because I can't really think of any franchises with that many games in, other than things like Mario, which
has been made into a film, but...
True, but it wasn't a comic first.
No.
And he's had hundreds of games.
Next question?
Yeah.
This is the last question. This is about the trailer that we were talking about. The Hunger Games was based on a book written by who?
I don't know. So, when I watched the trailer for the Hunger Games, that was the first I'd heard of everything to do with it. Those were bastard hard questions.
Yeah, I know.
You got 1 point.
I'll give you 2 points for that. Do you want the answers, or should I just sit here and
Do the answers, go on.
Okay, the first one, which film opens with the owner of an evil multinational corporation throwing his son off a cliff? That's Tekken.
Oh, okay. See, I never played the original
No
Tekken.
one else played Tekken. Not even
Yeah.
I played Tekken as a child. I used to kick ass at Tekken.
I played Tekken in an arcade where I didn't watch cutscenes.
Yeah, but
I
the
played
characters...
Tekken against Anita, and she beat me, and then that's it.
Will played Tekken against his mum, and his mum beat him. And he always used that as a reasonable argument to say that you can know as much as you can about the game, but button mashing can still win.
It's kind of the appeal of fighting games. A lot of them do that. Except for Super Smash Bros. You have to be good at that game.
I thought that game was more... I thought you would have got it from the names of the characters. Clearly, in my childhood, it was a big feature, and in everyone else's, it was like, what is this shit?
No, it's just I had an N64 and a GameCube and not a PlayStation, so I didn't have Tekken.
A life wrapped in cotton wool.
Yeah.
No PEGI rating over 12.
I was in a Nintendo bubble where on Mortal Kombat, when you punch them, sweat came out instead of blood.
What happened when you ripped his spine out?
They hadn't quite got to the graphics of that capability to animate that yet, but yeah.
And second question, what film about evil video games features Milo Ventimiglia, Frankie Muniz, and that guy from that one episode of Friends is called Stay Alive?
Never heard of it.
I've seen it like 4 times, and I don't know why.
Why?
I don't know why. It just keeps being on television. I've seen this before. I know it's not scary. I'll just watch it.
That guy from that one episode of Friends isn't a bad actor.
Yeah, he's not been in much though,
No, true.
except for that one episode of Friends. Anyway, you got the Resident Evil question right, so.
Yeah, that was a piece of piss. Well, I own every single one of the games, so.
Yeah, he was world ranked at headshots on one of the games on the Wii for a while,
Yeah.
as in second in the world.
No, to be fair, I think it was either third or fourth.
There have been 27 games in a certain franchise. What's the franchise? Ross, do you want to have a guess at it? Because I know it's going to kill you if you don't guess.
Yeah, first of all, before you said the films came before the games, I was going to guess X-Men. But there haven't been that many films. The next thing I was going to guess was Spider-Man, because I personally own 7 Spider-Man games.
You're right, it was X-Men.
Oh.
Like 20 of them.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
20 of them are about X-Men, and then about 6 of them are just about Wolverine.
That's because they're
That's
probably the same
definitely-
game on different platforms
Nah,
for the Wolverine Origins film.
quite possibly, but I was just counting, so
Yeah.
Wikipedia and me and maths. Don't we go together?
Wolverine only has like twice as much depth of any of the other characters in X-Men, and then suddenly not suddenly, but for some reason all the nerds have just like championed him, and now all the sort of spin-off stuff is purely about him, and I don't really understand it. I get
Except
the
First Class, yeah.
I'm not just talking about the films though. I like comic books and even like kids' cartoons. Wolverine invariably has episodes devoted just to him. One of the Hulk versus movies, I think it was titled Hulk versus X-Men. It was just Wolverine. They like bring him in just purely to hunt the Hulk. It was pretty cool actually.
I always forget that X-Men are in the Marvel universe. Oh, sorry, have we finished?
There was the last one.
Oh, sorry.
The Games was based on a book written by Suzanne Collins.
So yeah, 2 points for Alex. Alex, if you add my score to your score, we draw with Charlotte.
Just so you know, it'll be like this every single week. I just don't really do this thing where you ask other people questions and then they win. I don't really understand it. It goes against the
Oh
nature of
my
competition. No, I genuinely, like if I'm doing a quiz, I'm kind of going, well, what won't they get?
I felt awful for how I quizzed you last week, because all my questions was you complaining they were too hard.
You've played Monopoly against me, you should know what I'm like.
I'm sorry, Kat, you're the only person in the conversation who hasn't played Star Wars Monopoly yet.
Damn it, Ross, you promised me. You promised me like over a year ago.
Anyway, we haven't introduced the fact that we have a guest speaker, contributor,
Oh, yeah.
caster, whatever we want to say this week. She's joining us for the latter half of our episode number 3. The lovely Cat Stiles. She's over there somewhere. I'm pointing towards west. Shit, I told them where you live, Alex.
They will never narrow it down just with Alex and Weston. We could do it like a treasure hunt though. We could just give clues.
Or we could not.
We could.
But yeah, so yeah, Kat's here. She's over there.
Yes, hello, guest host, my girlfriend.
Alex, don't humanise yourself.
Yes, we're basement dwellers that are dead inside on this podcast.
Yeah, well, I'm just a hyper-intelligent shade of the colour blue.
I'm a whale that spawned into being above the in midair and
Charlotte's a bowl of petunias.
Oh no, not again.
For anyone who hasn't read any of the material from what that is sourced from, I hope you die in a fire, because it's one of the classic British novels.
He is, of course, talking about 1984.
I am. I'm talking about 1984, the crossover with Nicholas Nickleby, when everybody goes bear hunting.
yeah. And there's this great scene with the whale just after that where they attach this sort of contraption onto his head and feet and with a little funnel, a little tube, and they put hungry rats through the tube to eat the whale's head. And it's very harrowing.
Whales are terrified of rats.
That is
Yeah.
true, yeah.
But it works the other way around as well. You know where there's a sinking ship and all the rats are trying to get off it? You know, that they're going for the whales.
If you were a rat on a... No, fuck, tangents.
If you were a tangent on a rat,
So we need to get back on topic. So, Al, what are we talking about?
This week's in-depth topic is what do we look for in video games and films comparatively? So what do we like to find experience-wise or narrative-wise in both media forms? Okay, so for films, I look for things like believable characters because, I won't do the because. I look for believable characters. I look for intense action and thought-provoking storylines. Games, I look for immersion. I think it's slightly different to films in that because of the interactivity, you're more a part of the fantasy world than you are when you're watching a film.
Hi, Kat.
I have done. Hello. What I've done is I have talked about with myself what I expect in terms of sort of visuals in games and films and compared them, and what I expect in terms of sort of plot and story and things like that. Turns out I'm a real snob. That's not later.
Cool. Charlotte, what about you?
I like storylines in games. I don't necessarily need them.
Oh, fair enough.
And I'm guessing from that you do need them in films.
Yes, mostly.
The way I was sort of looking at it is, with a film, its basic premise is to tell you a story, and then do other things to you. Whereas the basic premise of a game, in my opinion, is to be interactive. And whilst a story is good, whilst a good story is highly ranked in my opinion of things I look for in a game, it can be undone in many other ways to make it. If you have a good story, it can be good. Oh, shut up, Ross. I wrote this down yesterday, and I spilled tea on the paper, and it's destroyed the thing I was going to say. Right, yeah. Well, a storyline in the film, the story is there. It's important in the film because if you didn't have a story, then you would just be watching an unconnected series of events. It just wouldn't. It is the main thrust of a film is to tell a story, to be a narrative. With a game,
you're like looking at a photo album, right?
Yeah, exactly. With a game, story is genuinely one of the things I very much enjoy in games if it's done well. But I don't like it when people sacrifice other things for story, or when story detracts from other parts of the game, like action or immersion or controls, things like that, because the idea of a game is to be interactive as opposed to a movie which is completely reactive. You watch it, it's presented to you, you can't watch it in a different way.
So the story in a game is not essential.
It's essential for a good game, but it's not as essential as it is in a film. That's what I'm saying.
Equally, action can disrupt the story in a game. I mean, sometimes you're supposed to play through cutscenes, and you're like, all I'm doing is walking. There is no. I'm thinking of the beginning bit of Batman Arkham, where you're just like, we're going to involve you. All you have to do is walk forward and follow us. The rest of the cutscene is going to happen around you. I hate that. It's like, I'd rather just sit and watch the cutscene rather than you make sort of. It just feels like they're going, they've been sitting there for a while. They need to do something. Action can disrupt storyline. That's my point.
Alex, I know you've got a Homer-style epic to talk about.
As always, yeah. Before I do that, Charlotte, what was your point again?
Shit, I forgot. Don't ask me to make my points again. I said I like storyline games, but I don't necessarily them.
That's kind of what I failed to say as well.
So if you don't think a storyline is essential to a game...
I didn't say it wasn't essential. I like them if they're there, and the thing is, they're different things. Like, I can play games which have no storyline whatsoever and be perfectly happy. Tekken, as a case in point, I can while away hours of my time, literally just button mashing and punching people. And occasionally there's a cutscene, and I'm like, oh no, I need this ties together. But there's apparently a panda, and I'm going to use it to kick people. So I like that game.
And a kangaroo.
So let's take, for example, a puzzle game. Something so simple like Bejeweled. There's no story at all. It's just a series of shapes, but you can still feel sort of driven in the game and sort of totally immersed, sort of 100% focused on making those sets of three because of the interactivity and nothing else. Because you're striving for a goal. The game is playing off a completely separate part of human desire, the desire to achieve something, rather than the desire to, I don't know what a film would be, just the voyeuristic desire of watching a narrative. But games have so much more to work with, because they can have all the narrative elements of a film, but they have a whole different dimension to work with interactivity, with playing on a different part of what humans want. So in my opinion, I think games are probably superior, potentially. I'm not saying yet, but potentially games are superior narrative-wise to films.
I don't think I really understood the point.
Well, I got confused because you started out saying that you could have a game with no storyline whatsoever like Bejeweled and become completely immersed, and then you ended up saying that games could be superior in terms of storyline to films, and I don't understand how the two link.
And halfway through, I did kind of just think, God, it's ages since I played Bejeweled.
You need to take the bit from the start of what I said and connect it. I was trying to explain that games do have this whole other dimension, this interactivity, and they can use that in the narrative, which Bejeweled obviously doesn't, which I should have explained. So if you've got this, if you've got interactivity within a narrative, it immerses you even more than a film. If you have a vested interest in what happens in the storyline, then you're more tense. You care about whatever character you're controlling or watching more because you participate in it. It's part of you, because if you're controlling this avatar, you're putting yourself in it, and if you're controlling it, and then the narrative is happening to you, so it's more visceral.
I respectfully disagree.
Why?
Because I think a very good, very well written film can encourage you to project yourself onto the central characters just as well as a game can. I don't think you necessarily need the interactivity to achieve that. I think if you've got a film that is truly engaging and
relatable.
Yes, exactly. The idea of a film is to project yourself onto the characters. It's the same principle from children's stories up to adult literature to films. It's all the same thing. The idea is that you identify through one of the characters. It might not be the good guy. You might sort of identify through the bad guy. It doesn't matter. But if a well-written and well-acted film can do that just as well as a game can. You don't need the interactivity to feel that.
That's a very good point, but you're kind of missing my point. My point is that...
Well, then make your point more clearly.
I'm getting that. I'm saying that a game can potentially have that same style of storytelling that lets you project onto the characters in the game in the same way and at the same level that a film does, but a film doesn't have the capability to be interactive, can never add any more to it than the tools it already have, but games can potentially do more. Things like Heavy Rain, they tried to do that. Yeah, I mean that's the big one.
That's the one I was gonna say is the closest thing to a hybrid.
I've got to stop talking now because I haven't played Heavy Rain, so...
No, me neither. Charlotte has.
I would say that, yeah, it's like that thing Kat was saying about, it's basically just cutscene. The whole of Heavy Rain is a cutscene that you have to walk through, and then occasionally press X. It's not I wouldn't call it a game in terms of that. It's basically like a film where you just have to keep on navigating through the menu.
It's just one endless DVD menu.
Yeah, it is, pretty much. I love that game. I played it like 8 times just because I wanted all the trophies. But I wouldn't say that you could sit there and go, yes, it's a fantastic example of gameplay. There's nothing. It's just point and click.
Yeah, but this is like Bambi's first steps. Okay, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, but sorry, why does it have to be first steps? Why can't?
It's got Sony money, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but what's stopping games at the moment from being just as storyline driven as films? What exactly is it where game makers go, oh, we couldn't possibly do that? That's much too complicated.
It's the market. Because the market, at a glance, and in my impression, wouldn't really react well to games that are...
How successful is Heavy Rain?
Yeah, Heavy Rain has had medium success. I would say that, but that's sort of making my point for me by saying that Heavy Rain is as Alex said, like a Bambi step into doing that, and it's had medium success. It didn't fly off the shelves when it came out, and I don't know that many people who own it. If you released a game, it's speculation, but I reckon if you released a game that was Bambi 2, The Reckoning, or whatever version of Steps, sort of further down the line of development of an interactive movie, for lack of a better term, I don't really think people will react to it very positively at the moment. The indie market is the place where this will come first.
I think the reason why we haven't done this yet is purely because games are a very young medium. Films have been around for decades. And so they've learned how to create characters that are so easy for the viewer to project upon. But
Twilight, Little Miss Anybody in that.
What we've named like 3 games that have actually contributed anything to the narrative as well as interactivity. We haven't even realised that we can do these kinds of things yet. We're only just now realising that we have the tools to change narrative.
Another thing that comes to mind talking about video games blending with films is maybe a bit of a lesser point, but about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I spent 4 hours installing Metal Gear Solid 4 on my PS3, and after nearly 50 minutes of, in inverted commas, gameplay, I finally got to move Snake. Up until that point, I've never touched a Metal Gear Solid game before. I didn't know the story very well. It's something about a small version of K9 from the Doctor Who series has nukes in it. I don't know. It was an interesting, really sort of well done 50 minutes worth of what effectively was just next gen anime. It was great. And then I started to control the character, and everything fell apart, and I stopped playing the game. But that very much seems to be sort of along the same lines as we've just said before, walking through a cutscene, pressing X every now and then. The fact that Metal Gear Solid 4, and I assume the other games as well, are specifically known for the amount of time they spend in cutscenes is, in a very, very blunt way, is saying, look, we like our story is important. And I think that will be the steps what game industry / film industry takes in order to meld the two together. It'll be, here is an enjoyable title or a well-established title like Metal Gear Solid or maybe Zelda or Metroid or something like that. I'm sure it'll be Nintendo, to be honest, actually. They'll do something along the lines of the same character in the same universe, but instead of their standard third-person shooter or hack and slash adventure or whatever, it'll be a set storyline which all you have to do is heavy rain, as it were. Just choose where you think the story should go. Actually, no, as I'm saying that sounds like an awful idea. That sounds like a really bad idea.
See what I like in terms of this one, Limbo. Really sort of, I love that game. But I mean, there's no cutscenes at all. It's just, I mean, you don't even they don't even go through the sort of controls with you. It's a case of you're lying on the floor, work out how to get up and get moving. They don't sort of do anything like that with you, but it's still got an amazing story to sort of drive it. It's very simple, because I mean, there's no dialogue, but premise, and it's just really engaging.
I would say it creates a world for your character to inhabit, but I don't think it has any story.
Well, it does, because you're finding your sister who's dead.
Cat's saying that Limbo tells a story with 0 cutscenes in sort of contrast to Metal Gear Solid 4, which tells a story through cutscenes.
I would still argue that it's such a basic story that it can barely be called that.
Yeah, but it's still, what you said that it was about interactivity and immersing yourself in the storyline, and even if it's simple, it's a simple one, if it's well done, it's still immersive.
Exactly, it's all about execution.
I'm not denying that. It's just that until we saw that one tiny flash of a woman, which we're assuming is his sister, there was no narrative. It was just a guy in a world.
Yeah, everything else is integrated through the gameplay. Everything else you get is through the gameplay and through the atmosphere created by the artwork.
Yeah, but none of that meant anything until we saw the sister.
That's how films work as well. You don't have, this is the basic premise of the film. Are you okay with this? We're going to tell the story now.
Yeah, true.
That's a shit film like that. Yeah. What you want something like that, where you work it out as the action unfolds.
Or like Angels and Demons, where every half hour
that's not a film.
I haven't seen it. I heard that they
it's not also
sort
not
of very, very clearly segregate the scenes between exposition and action. And
is that the one with Ewan McGregor and a parachute?
He's the cardinal.
Yeah, I saw Angels and Demons in the cinema, having not seen Da Vinci Code, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but this man's on fire. No, I genuinely enjoyed it. I'm not ashamed of saying that I enjoyed that film. Just like I'm not ashamed at saying that I wish all books should be burnt and no one should ever read again, because that's effectively probably what I'm saying to both of you who love books.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm hearing when you're saying that to get as a good film is burn all the literature.
I think it's fair enough though. If you know, Angels and Demons, it's got to make a better film than it makes a book, because the book is shite. Favourite bit, and you know, sometimes you read a line in a book and you remember it's inspirational or beautiful. Yeah, I remember a line in that book because I have no idea where it came from. The guy, Tom Hanks, I don't remember his name in it, but he turns to the woman played by I've not seen the film, so I don't have a comparison, some lady, and goes, "Can you fire a gun?" And she's a marine biologist, and she goes, "I can tag a breaching porpoise from 500 yards. It's completely out of nowhere, and you just go, "That's lovely, but can you fire a gun?"
Christ.
Anyway,
tangent.
If Ross was still talking about Metal Gear Solid, this would be the perfect segue for me to slip into my Homer-esque rant. So yeah, you were talking about MGS and Hideo Kojima. I hope that's
Hideo Kojima.
A lot of critics say that he should just stop making games altogether, because apparently he clearly just wants to make films because of how long the cutscenes are and how many there are. Like MGS4, I did a little Google search, and various players gave their estimates for cutscene to gameplay, and I think it averaged out at about 50-50. And I think there's 9 hours of cutscenes in the game. It's insane. But I don't think that's a negative, because I think Hideo
Kojima.
That dude.
Yeah, he. I think he's like, I'm gonna hold him up as like the one of the champions for being able to tell a good narrative and incorporate interactivity in it.
Just you saying he's good at narratives. He received hundreds of thousands of death threats after the storyline of Metal Gear Solid 3. Maybe he's not such the. Well,
I'm about to say Metal Gear Solid 3.
Is that Solid Snake or Snake Eater?
Snake Eater.
Oh, it might have been 2 then. I'm not sure.
I did know that Metal Gear Solid 2 was shit. it made no sense at all. Turns out, spoiler alert for Metal Gear Solid 2, but it turns out the colonel you've been talking to the entire game is a computer program, robot. He's like a hologram. He's been talking to you on the codec, and he's like this cybernetic brain of a bunch of dead world leaders or something like that. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense. Kojima on Metal Gear Solid 3, it's going to be a pretty big spoiler, and I would urge you not to listen to this if you haven't played Metal Gear Solid 3, because it's a brilliant game.
I haven't played it, but I've read your notes.
Would you be interested in Metal Gear Solid game? No? Okay. They're very good.
Would I like them?
No.
Maybe. I don't know.
There's lots of people with exclamation marks over their heads and crawling. That's all I remember.
Hide in the box! Snake, hide in the box! Put ketchup on yourself and make it look like you're bleeding.
Yeah. What did I say? Kojima, in Metal Gear Solid 3, the character you play, Snake, there's a character in the game who has been his enemy from the entirety of the game. But in the beginning, it's a very deep explanation about how emotionally she is his mother, and they have a past, and it's very important to both of them. But in Snake's mission, a part of it, at least, is to kill her, to assassinate her. Snake's, this incredible soldier, and previously she was the best soldier, but Snake beats her. In one of the final cutscenes for the game, there's the speech that Snake's mother gives after she's lost the battle, and she's lying in the field. The cutscene cuts to Snake just standing over her with a gun pointed at her head. And when I first played this, it took me a few minutes, quite a long amount of time, to realize that this wasn't actually a cutscene. There was no HUD or anything like that, but I was definitely in control. Nothing was happening. The game was going to make me pull the trigger. The game was going to make me kill Snake's mother. I pressed all the other buttons on the controller except for fire, and I just wanted to turn the game off and shout, "Fuck you, Konami, I won't play your sick games." I didn't, because I wanted to experience the rest of the story, and I shot her, and she died. It was horrible. And it wouldn't have been anywhere near as horrible if it wasn't me that had to pull the trigger, because the game forces you to interact with it, to be a part of it, to kill your mother. That's this incredible depth to it that you wouldn't have got if it was just a movie sequence.
Or you wouldn't have got if it had been a QTE that you failed 40 times before you managed to get it right. Because I think the fact that it wasn't timed, if it had been timed, or if it had been a combo, then it wouldn't have had anywhere near the same effect.
Yeah, and it sort of fits with the scene as well, because there's no doubt about it. Snake has won the battle. She's there. She's going to die anyway. She's got mortal wounds. The game forces you to shoot your mother, and I thought that was brilliant. So props to you, Kojima. Keep making games.
Like, what I was musing about what I look for narratively in the difference between a game and a film is if you take a game like Fable, Mass Effect, COD, Dead Space, things like that. What I'm saying is, in these games where you are playing a character, a single person, be it named or unnamed, you're able to. This is what I look for in these characters. These are lists of games that I've enjoyed. I enjoy the characters because you are treated as if the player is the character. If you see what I mean, I don't like the word immersion, but it is you are placed in the boots of the person, in the protagonist's boots, basically. It's not a case of you're watching this person do something. You are physically interacting with the world, progressing the story, chopping the bad guys up, shooting the Arabs, whatever's going on.
So in Arkham Asylum, you are Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, you are Bruce Wayne. You are the Batman. I'm Batman. I've done that 2 episodes out of 3 so far.
We've got to start talking about Batman.
The point I'm making is you feel like you're in the driver's seat. You are the driving force of the game. And I suppose in the way I'm terming role-playing game is a little bit different, because in a role-playing game I see that as something where there's progression and room for expansion and sort of refining your character how you like to play it. I don't know an acronym to define that game other than RPG, but I think quite a lot of the FPS world also would be RPG-esque. Like Red Dead Redemption, for example. Huge game. The Grand Theft Auto games, obviously it's made by the same company, but that sort of big free world game where you can do whatever the hell you want, but it's all from your driving point, your perspective. In films, that is basically non-existent, because it's nothing to do with you. It's a purely reactive medium. So, whereas in Red Dead Redemption, you choose what you're doing, you choose where you're going, you choose what you say, but to an extent, you choose how you interact with the world. If you were to watch something like, just continue with the Western theme, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where you've got 3 characters that you follow the stories of, you are completely reactive to the situation. In which case, I believe a narrative is more important in a film to be strong than it is in a game, because a game can make up for it by allowing you to control how you go about telling the story. Am I making sense?
Yes. Well, I just sort of, one of my notes is about, I have noted how sort of, if you watch a film, the storyline is given as read. You need a good storyline to have a good film. There are films you sit through that just don't have it. You lose interest halfway through because you're not interactive. And what I was thinking was, well, why is it that in video games you don't need a storyline? Why is it that people can live without it? I mean, you, Charlotte, Alex have all said that you can live without them in games.
Yeah, I agree.
So I thought it was interesting that, you've got these two mediums, and both of them are about... There are similarities between this medium, but one of them has a major requirement, the other one is a perk in the other.
It's a triangle, 3 points, story, quality, so in a game that would be production value, whether it's some guy who's drawn it in paint or whether it's a Sony title that's cost billions, if it's a film, acting, direction, etc. And then content on the other. And I find very much a game or a film will lie somewhere in this triangle. Games very rarely nail all three at once. Prime example, let's take Black Ops. That had an awful story. It gets like 0 for story, but pretty good for action and content. Take a film like Another Earth, which I saw recently, which had reasonable acting, a horrendous story, and nothing else. The point I'm making is, a game with a bad story can keep you occupied if it makes up with decent gameplay, longevity or interesting artwork and things like that. Like a comparison I would make would be Braid to Binding of Isaac. I played both. I played Braid for 35 minutes. I played Binding of Isaac for 35 hours. Braid looks okay. It has a story, I've been told, but it has an awful game mechanic in my opinion.
Let's be honest, Braid looks beautiful.
Braid, you've honked on at me before, Alex, about how good Braid is, and I understand that, but it let me down because it didn't have a game mechanic, it didn't have an enjoyable game mechanic, whereas Binding of Isaac has a fairly simple storyline, an absolutely cracking mechanic, and is really enjoyable. And yeah. I think this sort of triangle, as I'm saying, as long as you can cover 2 of the points reasonably well, I, myself, as a consumer, will enjoy the game. Crank, as a film, has lots of fun action, reasonably decent acting, and a storyline that is off-the-wall bonkers. So you can't really call it a bad storyline, but it's not Oscar bait.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that film just because of... We always talk about Crank, don't we?
Yeah, we do
every time.
I really enjoyed Crank too. It knew that it was batshit bananas, and it went with it, and it's to its credit so much.
Exactly, which is why I think Luc Besson directing that biopic of Aung San, I can't say her name, Aung San, the Michelle Yeoh and David Thewlis film, directed by Luc Besson. And I'm like, you've done Crank and Transporter and Fifth Element. What are you doing? Which, yes, anyway.
So, dude, about RPG and, as in, character growth, couldn't any film about the protagonist sort of growing as a person be sort of similar?
No. I very much draw this line with, if you can't transplant your actions as a character in a game, if they don't affect you, if you don't enjoy playing the I'm going to use Mass Effect, for example, playing as Commander Shepard through the whole campaign of that. It was a woman and she didn't have my face, but she was me. It was my actions, the way I would react to all situations. So much me. If I've been watching a film, it's not personal. So what I'm saying is if you can find the character in the game relatable, I tend to enjoy it so much more because I care. I'm emotionally invested about it. I cried at the end of Red Dead Redemption because of something that happens, which I'm not allowed to say just in case I spoil it for anyone, because it's amazing. I genuinely shed a tear, and that is the only time I've got that emotionally involved in a game. And that very rarely happens with films or anything like that, because there's sitting and watching a film and thinking, how would I react in that situation? Alex, when we watched Buried, for example, we spent an hour and a half laughing at Ryan Reynolds, but I do remember at several points, specifically when he fights a snake with a flamethrower. And that just sounds like we're talking, bullshit because you two haven't seen the film, we're trying to be funny. That actually happened. I'm pretty sure we had the discussion, what would you do in that situation? And I think that is a level of relatability similar, but not in any way near the same magnitude. But I think the experience of a game different from the experience of film. With a game, I'm looking for it to hold my attention, to challenge and reward me in equal measure, and really to not be shit. I can't really say it in any other way. If it doesn't meet my personal taste, then I don't spend time. I just knock it by the wayside. I won't spend any more time with it. As I said,
yeah, I get what you mean. Like games are a lot more versatile than films. They can be just as good narrative-wise and having a good story, or they can just be like a little puzzle game, or like a little Binding of Isaac, which you dip in and out of very briefly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it doesn't. Nothing comes of it. It's just like a little brief spat of entertainment. Whereas if you're watching a film, even if it's like a very sort of base action piece of crap film that you just watch for a bit of entertainment, you have to kind of commit to it. You've got to give away 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think more than just sort of the base visceral entertainment, then you've got another layer where what you've experienced sort of changes your emotional state, like being scared by a horror film or a horror game, or something even more like you getting upset at the end of Red Dead. That's another probably even more powerful emotional change, which is very good to look for in these two. But I think there's probably more that these mediums can provide, like when you actually stop and consider your own like morals or something like that. Like, say films are probably a lot better because they've had a lot more experience and they cover many more issues than games do. Like, just to pick one out of a hat, like Polaris, you've got that scene where...
Not seen it.
There's a scene, they're on a space station and some weird shit's going on. And George Clooney's wife...
Oh, Solaris. I thought you said Polaris with a P.
Yeah, I did say Polaris and P. Sorry, I meant Solaris.
No, I've seen the first quarter of an hour of that. Yeah, carry
on. Yeah, I can't remember whether his wife's dead or whether she just left him. But basically, she appears on the space station. There's no way she could have got there. They're out in deep space. And he thinks he's dreaming or going mad or something. And he puts her in an escape pod and just fires her out of the space station. And I think we're very much supposed to assume that she's going to die out there. They're in deep space, and he's literally just jettisoned off this imaginary person who, for all intents and purposes, has been entirely real. But because he thinks he's going insane, he's feels justified in potentially killing someone. Which makes you think: would I kill someone if I wasn't sure if it was a real person, or that's quite a troubling, sort of quite important question that you have to ask yourself if you're in that situation. And even though you would never end up in that situation, it's quite interesting to have that question put to you. And even though films explore them more than games, I think games have a better capacity to explore these kinds of things because of the interactivity again.
Point. Having played Mass Effect 1 twice and then played Mass Effect 2, Legion he's the most entertaining character out of your team, and you don't get a long enough time, in my opinion, with him to develop any emotional connection with him. Spoiler, he is a Geth. He is obsessed with Colonel Shepard. He's built his armor out of bits of Colonel Shepard's old ship and old armor. The whole game took me, say, 13 hours to play through, I think. Sorry, 30 hours, not 13. So at this point, I've probably been playing with Legion for maybe 3 or 4 hours, so it's not really enough time to get to know him, whereas I've been playing with Garrus Vakarian for the entire first game, entire second game. There isn't enough time to build up enough an emotional connection to something that is already very unemotionally relatable, being a machine, talking like a machine, thinking like a machine, interacting with you in a very basic way, and then you're given these 2 options, which is kill them or neuter them, because the story arc needs them to not be around, really. I can understand why you would say that having to put the controller down and just think about it for a couple of minutes. For me, it was an instant decision, because I was emotionally invested in my character, who I'd been playing for coming up to 60 hours across 2 games now, and I was like, you motherfuckers have killed me so many goddamn times. You've destroyed so many planets. I can't deal with you being alive in this universe anymore. If it was a character which you have to... Sorry, you're more invested in because you played with him for longer, I think it would have been more poignant.
Yeah, going back to the decision about the Geth, I think just because your decision was instantaneous doesn't mean it was any less important. Because
I think it was more important because it was coming from a place of I hate you.
Yeah, it's an emotional decision. It's like I'm seeking vengeance on you with these nuclear bombs, and
that's because you played the entire storyline, isn't it? So
yeah, I was invested in the game very much. So.
Yeah.
Which is probably something that's very good in terms of games, having a consistent storyline that sort of provokes emotion like that.
But the decision that they put in this game about an entire race, I love that they put that in, because it's sort of a moral decision that you never really get in games. I mean, like you're killing people left, right, and centre in games. There's shooters all over the place, even set in today. Making a moral decision about the lives of an entire race is a whole different kettle of fish, because you're considering genocide and you have to consider the life of every single one of the guests, and it's the decision you make has to be universal. You can't just say, well, I like this character that I've got because he's been nice to me, but all the other guests have shot at me, so I'm going to kill them and keep this guy alive. It doesn't work like that. It has to be universal. Yeah, it's good. I liked it.
Anyway, let's move away from Mass Effect, because Mass Effect is not about what we're talking about.
Yes, no more Mass Effect. Forgot the name of the game.
Oh no, there we go. There's that point that I remembered like 20 minutes ago that I forgot to make. It's all about length. This applies.
And girth, my friend. You have to remember.
Yes, Professor Oak, you can't ignore his girth.
Exactly.
If you're watching a film for 2 hours and you get emotionally invested in it, that's great. If you're playing a game for 30 hours, you get emotionally invested in it 15 times as long. Well, I tend to build up completely like compounded investments emotionally on various things. And it's exactly the same with TV series as opposed to film. I get more emotionally invested in Stargate, a fairly camp science fiction series, because there's so much of it that it gives you a longer period in order to get a a veritable smorgasbord, if you will, of emotional interest in a series. And I find games that have gameplay length that is longer than, how long things like COD is. There's nowhere near enough longevity in some titles that claim to have excellent storylines for me to get anywhere near emotionally attached.
But when you get a film that does emotionally invest you, surely that's a testament to it because it's doing it in.
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree. That's what I was saying. Some films like The King's Speech manage to do that in 2.5 hours, but I get more emotionally invested in 5 seasons of Stargate Atlantis because it's quantity versus quality. Again, as a way of defining it, a quality film that's only 2.5 hours long can get me emotionally invested to a reasonably the same extent that 5 seasons of a TV series that is not really comparable, but I would say of a lower quality.
I think it depends on how good film is. I mean, like if it's a film that
I'm not saying films are automatically worse and TV series are automatically better. I'm just saying in that instance, that's how I find it. I find I invest myself much more in a TV series than I do in a film.
I think it's also, with both TV series and with games, it's about compulsive patterns of behaviour that drive you to continue sort of watching or playing as well.
Yeah, it's like forming a relationship of convenience because you've worked with the same person for 10 years. You sort of are around them for so long that you get comfortable.
Which is something a film can't do because it is, generally speaking, one block of 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever. Can't sort of generate that compulsion. Normally you sort of have a film and that's it. It's a singular contained.
You don't have your trilogies. Oh wait, everything's a trilogy now. Yeah, how often do you get a film where you finish it and you sit there staring at the black screen for half an hour because you're like, oh my god, it's an amazing revelation?
Never anymore, because I follow so many film sites and read so much and things like that. Nothing is ever a surprise anymore.
Some of the best experiences that I've had with films are when they've been complete surprises. Like my brother, we were in the lounge one time and he said, hey, let's watch this film. Turns out it was Akira. And I had that, and I was staring at the black screen for half an hour with the feeling of what the fuck did I just watch? It was amazing. I had no idea what was going on, but it was amazing.
Right, we've been talking for an hour and a half about this. I think it's about time we wrapped it up. So yeah, that was episode number 3. Let's sign off then. If you're looking for some sort of light-hearted comedy review about various films and games, etc., you can check out my blog, Too Short to Dance, at blogspot.com. That's T-O-O, short, T-O, dance, blogspot.com. Follow me on Twitter, at Rossage99. Please do subscribe to us on iTunes. It's all free, as well, we're pretty good. And we do indeed have a Facebook page. So get on Facebook and click like, and we'll send you all the updates about when the latest episodes are out, and you can get in contact with us, send us your questions, your thoughts, your feedback, any shout outs you want us to do and things like that. Alex, are any of your works on the internet up and running?
No, they're not yet, but in conjunction with this podcast, my blog essentially will be the sort of expanded podcast in written form. So if you're listening to either episode 1, 2, or 3, then the If It Moves Critique It .text episode 1 will at the very least be up.
Wonderful.
They're listening to episode 3 when they hear.
Okay, I wish I'd said that at episode 1.
Well, yeah, they're only numbers. We don't have to follow orders. Kat, do you want to plug anything of yours on the internet?
I do have a blog, which is generally my writings and so extracts from plays and short stories and things, which is CheshireCatsWorldOfWords.blogspot.com.
She's a thespian, you know, listeners.
Yeah,
Does that thing what with Shakespeare and things, and books and stuff and plays. It's taken me 21 years to figure out it's in Denmark. That's Hamlet, right?
Yeah, I
just can't.
I don't get the Shakespearean language. It's hard to follow.
I've never read it and I've never seen the play. I've only heard references to it, though.
Something is wrong in the state of Denmark. There are lines in the play that allude to it.
Oh, well, maybe I just wasn't aware what Denmark was back in the day then.
Worse.
Oh, well. I have a degree slightly related to geography as well. Denmark is made of rock.
Cool.
Danish rock, which is not the same as Brighton rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for placating me, Alex. I needed some sort of confirmation about what I was saying there. Yeah, so we've rambled on for this closing as usual for far too long. Let's say goodbye, and we shall come back on whenever for the 4th episode in a couple of weeks' time. Hopefully regular recording sessions and postings will be about every 2 weeks. Dear listeners, please do not get disparaged. We shall be regular.
We eat our bran at this podcast.
Okay.
Because we're regular, you know?
Yeah, no, I got it, but I didn't think fecal humour was the right way to close the episode.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Yeah, indeed. And yes, I've been Ross.
I've been Alex.
Yes.
And Cat.
That's been Kat, our guest for the week.
And I've been mostly silent because I was eating Jack cake for a lot of that.
I feel she's had the most fun, to be honest. 'Cause she's
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Anyway, goodbye, dear listeners.
Goodbye.